In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front brake hose on this Ford Excursion. This comes with the vacuum hose for your locking hub, so you can replace that at the same time. It goes from your frame down to the caliper. Let's get started. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 8 lug nuts, and then we can pull the wheel off. Let's disconnect the ABS wire off of the brake hose. Just pull these rubber grommets out, this to give us extra slack. Let's unclip the ABS sensor wire off of the brake hose. And then if you had your vacuum hub hose, you would undo that from both ends. Now this vehicle actually no longer has the factory vacuum hubs, it just has manual locking hubs, so there is no hose for me to disconnect or even replace, but of course you would have to disconnect yours. On the back of this bracket, right up here by the frame, you'll see an 11mm fitting. Use a flare nut wrench and break it free. Now, my brake line is fairly new, so it breaks free. However, what usually happens is this fitting will actually seize onto the line and it'll spin the line with it. That's going to break the line, and you want to try to avoid that. Because it's leaking fluid, I'm actually going to snug it back up for now since I know that it's going to come apart. So we can replace the rest of this brake hose up to here and then quickly swap the old one for the new one and lose the least amount of brake fluid. Let's crimp off this old brake hose. I don't like to do this to the new one, but the old one you can crimp down with some hose crimping pliers or some locking pliers if that's what you have. This will limit the amount of brake fluid flowing through. Use a 14mm socket or wrench and remove this banjo bolt. Make sure you have a collection bucket underneath to catch the fluid, because even though we crimp the brake hose, there is brake fluid in the caliper, which is going to want to leak out. Take this off, save the banjo bolt. However, you want to discard those 2 washers. Make sure they don't stick to the caliper. And let this hang down. Make sure this area is clean, free of debris. If you have an old caliper that's rusted, make sure that this lip right here where it seals up is still clean. If it's severely corroded, it actually will not make a good seal and you'll have a brake fluid leak. Take a new copper washer provided with your brake hose, put it on the banjo bolt, then take the brake hose, stick that bolt through with that washer, and on the other side, put another washer on, basically sandwiching the hose in between the 2 washers. Just like that. With the caliper cleaned off, ready to go, install the brake hose. Thread this on by hand, making sure it does not cross thread, and make sure you have the brake hose oriented in the right direction. You want this bend going upwards, not downward. Snug this up. Torque this banjo bolt to 26 foot-pounds. Basically, you just want to squish those 2 copper washers. That's going to make a nice tight seal. Now back up top at the line, we can remove the fitting, or unthread it I should say, and swap the other line over. Keep in mind brake fluid will leak, so have something to catch the fluid at the bottom. Pull that line out. I'm going to just bend this out of the way. Grab your new hose. I know this is still here, but I'm going to move it in a second. Just start the line on so that it stops leaking. Okay, snug it up. Now let's remove the old bracket from the frame and put this new one on. Doing this avoided a lot of brake fluid leaking from the line. To remove this bracket that holds the brake line, there's a bolt on the back side right there. It's on the frame. It's an 8mm headed bolt. So put a socket on it. You might have to hammer it on and unthread the bolt. Take that bolt out. There's the old brake hose. Take that off. Grab the new one. Make sure this mounting surface is clean. Line it up, and let's resecure it. Put that bolt through. Just bottom it out and snug it up. This doesn't have to be extremely tight. Once you get it snug, just give it a little bit extra so that it can hold on to that bracket. You don't want to strip the threads on it or break it. It's just a stamped steel bracket that threads were cut into. And that's all you want. All right, that's secured. Let's open up the bleeder screw to allow gravity to bleed the air out of this system. Remove the bleeder screw cap if your caliper has one. Use a 10mm wrench, break this bleeder screw free. And this is called a gravity bleed. We'll just let gravity push the fluid through and of course push the air out. Once bubbles stop coming out and we have a trickle of clean brake fluid with no air bubbles, we can close it off, and this should get rid of most, if not all, of the air in the system. However, you may need to do a full manual brake bleed, which you'll see how to do at the end of the video if there is still any air in your system. It looks like my bubbles have stopped and I'm getting some clean brake fluid here. Twist this around a little bit just in case air gets trapped. And there we go. I'm going to close it off now. My gravity bleed is done. Once again, if you feel the need to do a manual brake bleed, go for it. At this point, I'm going to clean all of this off with a rag. Wipe all the brake fluid down. You don't want it to continue dripping and getting on everything. Spray it with brake parts cleaner if needed. With it all cleaned off, cap this bleeder screw back off so it doesn't get clogged up with debris. Let's resecure the ABS wire onto the brake hose. Now this clip right here has to slide down a little bit, secure it, and push this one all the way up to where this rubber grommet is, and secure this as well. There you go. And of course, if you had your vacuum line for the vacuum hub actuator, you would reinstall that. Once again, my vehicle here does not have vacuum hubs anymore, so we removed the vacuum line. Underneath the hood, on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you'll find your master cylinder reservoir. Wipe it off if it has a lot of debris. You don't want that contaminating the fluid that's in here. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pull it off. If you read carefully, you'll see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so make sure that's what you have on hand and make sure you have plenty of it because this is quite a large master cylinder reservoir. Now let's top off the master cylinder up to the max line. Reinstall the cap. Let's get the wheel back on. Put on all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly. And then also in a cross pattern, we're going to torque them to 148 foot-pounds. A 148 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you'd like. Underneath the hood on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you'll find your master cylinder reservoir. Wipe it off if it has a lot of debris. You don't want that contaminating the fluid that's in here. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pull it off. If you read carefully, you'll see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so make sure that's what you have on hand and make sure you have plenty of it because this is quite a large master cylinder reservoir. Next, I want to remove all of the brake fluid that's here, and you can do that by using either a vacuum pump with a little reservoir on it or a fluid transfer pump, whatever you have that's going to get in here with a little hose and remove the fluid. Now fill up the master cylinder with .3 brake fluid all the way to the max line. Reinstall the cap. It's time to start bleeding these calipers, and on this vehicle we want to start at the right rear wheel. That's the passenger side rear. After bleeding that caliper, move over to the left rear. Then you're going to top off the master cylinder, make sure it stays full. Then move over to the right front caliper, bleed that, and the last one will be the left front caliper. At that point, you're going to want to top the master cylinder off again and feel the pedal. If it feels like there's still air in the system, continue bleeding in the same sequence, basically just repeat it until you're satisfied with the brake pedal feel. Now we have an assistant inside the vehicle ready to pump up the brake pedal and hold pressure. After a few pumps, as they hold, I'm going to open up the bleeder screw and fluid, potentially air, will come out of this bleeder screw. I also have this collection receptacle with a hose attached to it, so I don't make a mess, but of course a collection bucket would work just fine as well. At this point, I'm going to wait for them to tell me they're ready to hold. All right, they're holding pressure. So open this up with a 10mm wrench. There we go, we got some air. Go ahead and pump again. All right, they're holding. We're going to do this until there are no more air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw. Okay, go again. Holding. Okay, this was clean. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I snugged this back up. I'm going to remove my collection hose. Now, if your brake caliper had a cover, of course you'd want to cover this back up. For me, I'm just going to wipe this down, make sure there's no brake fluid. If there is any, you can use some brake parts cleaner and rinse it off. And at this point, you would do the same exact thing to the other side, that is the left rear caliper, and then of course top off the master cylinder after you've bled both of these rears. Now let's top off the master cylinder up to the max line. Reinstall the cap. Now we're at the right front caliper. We have bled both rears and topped off the master cylinder. So let's take the cap or the boot off of this bleeder screw. This one has one, so we're going to save it. And I'm going to put my hose on here. This also takes a 10mm wrench to break free. I'm going to have my assistant pump up the brake pedal now and create pressure. Go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm going to open this up. All right, lots of air on this one. Go ahead and pump again. All right, this one was clean at the end. Let's do it one more time. Go ahead and pump. This was good. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I got nice clean fluid. I'm going to remove my hose, wipe this off, spray it down if necessary, and cover this back up so that it doesn't get clogged up and rust. At this point, we're going to bleed the left front, do the caliper the exact same way, and then we'll top off the master cylinder one last time. Top off the master cylinder all the way to the max line. right about there. Perfect. We'll cap this off. At this point, if you are unsatisfied with how the brake pedal feels, you think there's more air, repeat the bleed in the same exact sequence until you are satisfied, and of course, don't forget to keep that master cylinder topped off at all times. Now put the wheels back on. The wheel torque is 148 foot-pounds on all 4 wheels.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.